Hello, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to Connect Africa. Welcome to our weekly. Now it's not anymore. It looks like bi-weekly session because we are here every day or every other day, if not every day. So yeah, because a lot is happening in the continent. So we really have to come with the information and knowledge to inform you, to engage you as well. So tonight, our topic is analyzing the coup that just happened a few days ago in Niger, another West African country that followed the steps of the likes of Mali and Burkina Faso. We will go into it in detail. To do that, to give us analysis, various questions around it. The Western media is going crazy and shaping in the agenda that they want you to get away. So it's really important for us to set our narrative straight. That's why we are here. Kwame is here as usual to do that. Welcome, Kwame.
Thank you so much, Mahlet, and regards to everyone. We thank you all the people who are watching our channel and have continued to support the channel. We are really glad that you are doing that. We don't take it for granted for all those who are, staying with us and watching the videos and sharing them with other people. We ask you that you continue to do the same. If you are new to the channel, try and subscribe to the channel and also share it with other people. We have mentioned consistently that we are for the continent and setting and putting up a new narrative and defending the African narrative and sparking a conversation around what Africa should be also. We are putting out the voice of the continent on global affairs. We should have an opinion also as Africans on the global affairs instead of having our narrative always put out there by the BBC and CNN and Al Jazeera, all these which we have seen. In many cases, these channels, they don't really love Africa. They don't really even know about what is happening in Africa on the ground, but they pretend to know what is going on the ground. So that's what we have come to debunk the false narrative about the African continent and also to put out the African voice regarding global events, geopolitics, geoeconomics, and all the things that are going out. What do Africans think? So when you support this channel, you are supporting that narrative, the African narrative, and you are helping us, to put that voice out. Your voice as an African is being put out there. So that is what we are doing. So continue to support the channel, and we are glad to be here once again to look at the issue of Niger. We have seen the coup that happened there, and of course a lot of people have come out to condemn the coup. Others have come out to support the coup. So which is which? That is what we want to look at today. Back to you, Mahlet.
All right, then. Thank you, Kwame, for that introduction as well. And greetings, reminding our viewers what it means for us if they share and if they engage, if they support this platform. Now, so let's go into it. Let's jump into this. So another coup happened in West Africa, which is Niger. The president Mohamed Bazoum is overthrown, which is the president of Niger, and the military has taken power. Now, looking at the happenings in West Africa, this is not for the first time. There's a lot of commonalities in these Western African countries that are, throwing their government and the military is taking over. So such as the countries are like Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea, Conakry, and then there was also another Guinea-Bissau, which almost happened. Now, if we really have to look at from the root of it, from the root cause of this coup, what is causing this coup? I think this is because I believe this is the approach we have to use rather than jumping and condemning the coups. It's better to listen to the voice of the people. It seems that it has a lot of support from the ground, this coup. So what causes this coup? Is it similar with other Western African countries as well?
Thank you, Mahlet. I think you have already even touched it, because this is sort of like a chain of events in line with coups that has been happening for the last 5 to 10 years, starting with the countries which you have already enumerated: Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea Conakry. It almost happened in Guinea-Bissau, and now Niger has also fallen. And actually, one place you did not mention is Ghana. There was, rumors of a possible coup also in Ghana, but the president and the opposition, they intervened in a certain way. But the question is, what is the cause of this? Why are these coups happening, and especially in West Africa? But it's not only in West Africa, but also there's a lot of dissatisfaction, across the whole African continent. We saw in Tunisia, it has been unstable. We saw a situation in Egypt. It was very unstable for a very long time. What is the cause of this? So I would suggest that there is a lot of underlying, situations. There's a lot of underlying pressure, when it comes to these coups, that there is things which have not been addressed. There's pressure which has been building up for a very long time across this continent, since the 1950s, when we started and entered into independence as African states. Now, this independence, when we got it, the African people had expectations, and those expectations, like one of the great, Africans and revolutionary, Amilcar Cabral, mentioned and said that people did not support us to fight, and did not go to bush, in numerous cases to fight for independence, because they wanted to talk about human rights and they wanted to talk about all the other things. People went to fight for material gain. They wanted to, to improve their lives and their well-being in all types of ways, in all types of manner, and at a very fast rate. And actually, this also Nkrumah warned about it in 1963, that if we are not able to deliver, the goods that our people supported us in fighting for independence, then our people will get angry and remove us from power. Now, this brings us to today, where we are today. Why are people revolting in Burkina, in Mali, in Niger, in Guinea? So whether those coups will be for the people or will be manipulated by the imperialists, or they are the ones who are overthrowing governments, I think that question can all be answered by the fact that the promises of independence in the African states have not been forthcoming, or if they have been forthcoming, they have been slow compared to the rate of population growth on the African continent. Now, you look at countries like Niger, for example. Let us speak out of Niger, where the coup has just happened. Niger is exporting a lot of uranium. Is exporting a lot of uranium and gold, and these days I think it is also starting to try to drill for oil. But these resources are not still benefiting the African people. So that discrepancy, the discrepancy between the expectations and the reality, is what is causing the problems. And the African leaders, or African heads of state, because in many cases we are hesitant to call them African leaders, why they are reacting the way they are reacting to what is happening, and painting with a brush everything that is happening regarding the coup as a negative thing, is because they themselves know that they have failed to deliver. And we see this group of ECOWAS, of course we are going to talk about ECOWAS. We see the group coming together. Instead of addressing the underlying issues and the grievances of the people, they have resorted to reactionary tactics and intimidation, as we have seen ECOWAS intimidating. So the problem is that the promises of independence are not forthcoming, and that is because of certain reasons which have to do with imperialism, which is sucking the continent dry, while our heads of state are telling us that it is democracy. And this is where the problem is now. So there's no economic and social upward mobility as we have expected, or as we expected that would come during independence. And this is what is coming in question right now. This is what is being challenged right now. This is what the African people are challenging right now. And it is also spilling through to the military, to the African militaries, because this is being expressed through the African military. The interests of the African people, in some cases, I'm not saying all of it, in some cases now, the military is picking up on the heartbeat of the people on the ground and their grievances, and saying, why are we not progressing when the rest of the world is progressing? So this is what we are seeing, to put it simply, without further, elaboration.
Thank you, Kwame, for that. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, we hear a little bit. We have heard you all along. Just there's a bit of sound. I don't know if it is from the microphone or something. Just to let you know, it can be better. But we heard you. We hear you good. But I think it can be better. Now, having said that, let me go to the second question. Now, let me say this. If you remember, I think we came here on this platform and analyzed when President Tinubu came to power and the way he spoke. So during the midterm of the African Union, he says this happened, I think, in July 17 or 16 or 18, somewhere around there. So he said in that summit, we do not tolerate any other coup in the region. By this time already, I mean, the coup of Mali happened, like all of them years ago, like 1 year, 2 years ago, okay? So it sounded like there is another coup that just happened or that's about to happen, but we all didn't know nothing about Niger. The Niger one, it happened a few days ago. So for me, I think there was something cooking in the fact that the foreign militaries have said nothing, which are really which are in Niger. So if you can quickly comment on it. But then my question, the second question for me is that the African Union and ECOWAS together with US and Europe have condemned the coup as they did for Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and even imposed sanctions. Do you think that their action, did they do enough research, or is their action well informed, or are they just rushing to this?
Yeah, I think that the approach of ECOWAS, the African Union, I mean, from my point of view, is unfortunate. And of course, even the Pan-African Parliament has issued this statement, which is condemning the coup and claiming all kinds of things. I think it is unfortunate because it is misinformed. If you see what they are doing, I think this is what Nkrumah was talking about when he wrote the book, Class Struggle in Africa. Because Nkrumah argues that in that book that the interests of the colonialists now they are going to get intertwined, or they are intertwined, with the African bourgeoisie or the African middle class. And of course, in that group, he put there the ruling class, and those who have businesses and those who are working for these multinational corporations which are exploiting the African continent. So these people, they become oblivious to the cries of their fellow Africans, that they do not want even to listen when the poor Africans are crying. They will just say that what we are giving you is enough. And these people are receiving, of course, also crumbs from their masters. Of course, you can talk about the IMF and World Bank. They are receiving from the IMF and consuming and then throwing. Of course, the crumbs which I'm talking about, they receive from the IMF. It is the resources which are extracted from Africa or the global south. The same corporations which are extracting, they give this money to the IMF, and the IMF gives the crumbs after they have consumed everything. And our heads of state also, they take those crumbs and they sprinkle them and give it to us. So this is what the people now are challenging. Now, this is where it becomes unfortunate. Now, this group of ECOWAS, African Union, Pan-African Parliament, it becomes a group of people, it has become a group of people together with some middle class who are not interested in developing Africa and who are satisfied with just mentioning the words democracy. It becomes that group which Nkrumah called the bourgeoisie or the middle class, which has been built up in Africa and it has been supported by the West. So they are oblivious. Now, they parrot the same narrative of their master, who is the United Nations and the US and France. That is why you are seeing that the African Union, the Pan-African Parliament, ECOWAS, now they are saying the same thing. They are saying the same thing. And this is a very unfortunate situation, because you would have seen the African Union and the Pan-African Parliament, the first thing they could have done, or they should have done, is to go and examine what has caused this. Even the reports were supposed to come out and be published of the previous coups which happened in Mali, Burkina Faso. This should have informed their position actually, even with this coup which happened, and they would have held it back and said, no, there's something abnormal here. There's a problem here. Because the ECOWAS has not stood up to protect the economic interests of the people in Niger or Mali or Burkina Faso. It has not. ECOWAS and the African Union and Pan-African Parliament, they have not stood up to protect the interests, the security situation of the Malian people. They did not stand up when, Libya was being attacked. They did not stand up to examine what is happening actually in Niger. If you ask them, do they know what is happening in Niger in the ground, or they are just issuing statements, are claiming democracy? Because democracy is not democracy because you have said it. Democracy is democracy when it is delivering to the people. It's not just because you have said it is democracy. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to deliver. So I think that the African Union, the ECOWAS, and the Pan-African Parliament is very much erring. It should have been on the side of the African people instead of being on the side of the colonialists. And they need to employ people who are going to do analysis for them. Like us, they need to employ Pan-Africanists to do analysis for them before they issue out to statements and ask what is really happening, what is the problem. Because the interests of the African people are being ignored. And then every time the African people rise up to complain, immediately the card of democracy is pulled out, which is very unfair to the African people. Yeah. And this will bring about confrontation. Continued confrontation is the one which is going to emerge out of the continent. So it will make the continent even much more unstable. And who's going to benefit? Of course, the colonialists are the ones who are going to benefit. Because now what we are seeing is that what is emerging is a war between, what we are seeing is emerging is a war between the ruling class on the African continent and the African people. That is what we are seeing that is going to emerge. And which is very unfortunate. And who's going to benefit? Is the colonialists who will benefit, because they will go inside and start manipulating this. So it is very problematic. I think that the African Union, ECOWAS, they need to step back and examine their actions.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. I agree 100% with that. Now, one of the things, that this coup and the reaction, one of the things that it unfolded is that, who is serving for who, because we have seen, their immediate action, even prior, it looks like the whole thing orchestrated and they have their plan. Let's look at, for example, Ghana, if we have to pull some trades, have increased the salaries for its security, which is by 300%. Last year, we have seen Vice President Kamala Harris making a speech at the airport. Is it the same airport that is named after the guy who ousted Kwame? Tell me the name again. Yeah, so at that airport, and very splendidly, and at the back with the Air Force One, with the American jet or whatever. Now, can we conclude out of this that President Akufo-Addo and also the Nigerian President Tinubu, their concern for democracy, you mentioned it now, just democracy and democracy, we know what it means, but it's a bit of out of concern. Can you share your view on that, specifically on those two neighboring countries in the region?
Yeah, so I was listening to one commentator who was from Niger, who was of Nigerian descent, and he was giving an interview to NBC because, the Americans were very concerned about this coup when it happened. Because, the Americans on top, what surprised me is that there's a lot of European military bases in Niger. All of us have not been aware of this. So the Americans, they have a drone military base in there. Germany has troops which were chased from Mali. It put them in Niger. Belgium has troops in Niger. Canada has troops in Niger. This is what's not being mentioned. And this is unacceptable. This is absolutely unacceptable. So while these same leaders like President Nana-Addo and others are condemning Wagner as a group, as a military group, these military groups from the West are in Africa. What are they doing there, and why is Nana-Addo not condemning them? And he himself, plus the previous government, they allowed the US military to come to Ghana. And it is there. It is there, but they are not condemning it. But they are condemning others who are, bringing Russia and Wagner Group. So in essence, these guys, like, they are saying that it is okay to be colonized by the West. Mm-hmm. But it is not okay to be colonized by Russia. That's what they are saying. And for me, I'm saying that it is not okay to be colonized by anyone.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But at the same time, the people have a right to try out different things if the current order is not working. People have the right to arrange a different order and to see that they stabilize their country. The West and its NATO, all together, those groups which are in Niger already, in Ghana, the same Western military, United States military, they're the ones who brought this chaos in the, in the Sahel. So if you are talking about terrorists, these are the terrorists. Mm-hmm. They're the ones who brought the problems in the Sahel with the overthrow of the government in Libya. So when these people talk about democracy, people like President Nana-Addo, who has been saying very much how democracy is the best government, I think that this is just an excuse. It's just an excuse. Like I said in the beginning, is a hiding place. Democracy is being used as a hiding place. Yeah. Whenever poor performance is spoken about, poor performance of the economy, and there is no upward social and economic mobility of the population, of the people, then all of a sudden, democracy is pulled out as an excuse. You should not talk about it. But when you examine people like President Nana-Addo, while he's talking about democracy, he's inviting the United States military. That is one. Number two, what you spoke about already, is increasing the the country's military salary, which means you are, you know, bribing the military in the country. Increased it by 300% last year, because people were complaining about upward mobility and the poor performance of the economy, and the poor performance because he promised a lot of things and he did not deliver, and the economy was there deteriorating. And we saw that Ghana defaulted on its debt, and it ran back to pick, you know, loans from the IMF and get more conditions which are going to be devastating for the people. So when the performance is wanting, now the excuse becomes democracy. And this is what we are seeing with this group of African heads of state who are gathering with the ECOWAS, because they are being questioned, why are you not delivering? All of a sudden is democracy. So I think that this is an excuse, and I think the African people need to stand firm and say this is what, even the people in Niger, I support them. They have to stand firm and say this is it, this is what we want. We cannot accept the excuses of democracy to override, you know, delivery and incompetency. You have to be questioned on your incompetency and your failure to deliver to the African people. For the last 60 years, 100 years. We are entering 100 years. We have entered the second half of a century. And these people have not delivered the continent out of poverty. And all of a sudden, every time you talk about it, they say democracy. I think this is not going to be acceptable to us as the young generation, as the, you know, at the next young generation of people, of African people. So this is what I'm seeing. You know, sorry that even it got me very upset, but I think how they are operating is really unacceptable. African heads of state, how they're operating is unacceptable. Is very unacceptable.
I'm definitely with you with that one. And this Niger situation really gets everyone. I mean, you cannot act like this media protocol, or it doesn't need any diplomacy, because the way they do it, for example, today we have seen that the French president came out and threatened Niger if any of their interests is threatened, that they would intervene. That's it. In white.
Yeah. So what they are saying, and of course with the African heads of state supporting them. So what now France is saying and the United States is that you have to accept colonialism. You have to accept it. So you cannot resist colonialism. Exactly. And this takes me back to the words which you know, President Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso said at the US Russia Africa Summit, that a slave who doesn't revolt deserves no pity. You do not deserve pity and mercy if you are, you know, you are a slave and you don't want to revolt. You don't deserve. No one will come even to your aid because you decided to stay in it. And this is what we are saying in Niger. They are saying that no, we can't accept this situation. We can't accept the excuse of democracy, because democracy has become now a chain, you know, it become a chain in the neck of Africans. Because democracy is supposed to be a means to an end. And what is the end? The end is the delivery of the service of improved lives for the people. The end of democracy as a process, it should be a journey or a road to improve the lives for the people, upward economic and social mobility. If your type of democracy cannot deliver these things which we want as Africans, then that kind of democracy should be discarded, and we should start exploring other means of governance. So the democracy cannot be used as a religion around the necks of Africans, as an excuse for not delivering. So we have what we are seeing now, and what we are saying now is that a conversation has to start about why they are not delivering, why their system, which they are claiming that is democracy, and they are tying it around the necks of Africans, is not delivering to the African people. And that system is allowing them to export Africa's raw materials to the West. So if that's the type of democracy, that type of democracy allows them to export Africa's resources as raw materials to the Western world, while the same people are living large, the same heads of state are living large, and their children are studying and they get treatment. People like Tinubu of Nigeria, he gets treatment from France and outside and the UK. Buhari was getting treatment from the UK. Mm-hmm. The majority of people, they are not getting treatment from over there. Akufo-Addo, always in Europe. Always. You see, how many times has Akufo-Addo visited Niger? How many times has Akufo-Addo visited the rest of the African countries? How many times has Ouattara of, you can even speak of Ouattara of Ivory Coast, who changed the constitution after his 2 terms, and he did a coup. He's also among the group of ECOWAS who are claiming that there was a coup in Niger. This man did a coup on the constitution.
Yeah. I would like
this is ridiculous.
On that one, definitely. I'm glad you came in or you intervened. But there's an interesting comment that before we go to the next question that I would like to read. First of all of you, thank you for your comments, for your engagement, everything. I'm really happy. I see that you are listening, and you are bringing also, you are adding inputs. Now, Black said, how is this Niger government overthrow or the coup that happened in Niger any different from the overthrow of Egypt's elected leader? Very important point. How is the Niger revolution is condemned and Egypt's revolution is praised and okay? And we can add on that one. What about the Chad? When the African Union banned Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea, they did not ban Chad, because we know the chairperson of the African Union comes from Chad. So it's a very biased approach that they need to be really embarrassed and ashamed of their action right now. Now, what I want to ask you next is that there seems to be, definitely from your analysis, we have missed this difference between democracy and economic development, right? Because let's establish this fact. The people of Niger, the people of Mali, the people of Burkina Faso or Guinea-Conakry, they went out and they rebelled. They supported the overthrow of their governments, and they supported the military because they were tired of French colonialism. I mean, as simple as that. There's nothing around it. There's nothing. It doesn't need. You don't need to be diplomatic. That is what and you are pushing them now to the next, to another age, which you see them now with Russian flag on the streets, because with that one, they know they are treated equally. So that is one. Having established that fact, now I want you, if you can compare and contrast for us the difference between democracy and economic development, because it looks like democracy is being used as an excuse for failure to deliver economic and social development. Now, is democracy the end, or it's just the means to an end? Which end is economic and social mobility upwards, of course, what you say.
Yeah, so I think a few years ago, Omali Ashitela of the African People's Socialist Party spoke at the Oxford Union, and Omali Ashitela, who is a man of African descent living in St. Louis, Missouri, is the leader of the African People's Socialist Party, who is promoting the idea that we should be able to unify Africa under a theory which he developed, which is called African internationalism. I spoke at the Oxford Union in the UK, and he was speaking in argument for the unification of Africa. And he said that the problem or the reason why you have a lot of problems in Europe and chaos in Europe is because there is a rejection of the parasitism, okay, or the parasitic nature or hegemonic behavior of the West in the rest of the global South and in Africa and all the other. That is why you see countries like the United States and France, they were very quick to react. Because like I mentioned, in Niger, they are extracting uranium for their nuclear power plants. France, that is where they are getting the uranium. They have been getting this from Mali, Niger. They are taking the gold because everywhere where there is uranium, there is gold. There happens to be gold in those places. So they have been extracting. So you see countries like Belgium, Canada, United States, Germany, France, all of them were present in Niger. But these, you know, somewhat African organizations like African Union, which is corrupt, that they have failed to be financed by themselves. They have failed to finance the organization themselves, and they take bribes from the West, and they call it they are taking funding from the West. These are bribes. That's why they are parroting the same narrative. So these countries have looked at African people taking back their resources as going to bring chaos in their countries. The uranium will be stopped. So the excuse now then, with their boys, who are the African heads of state, it becomes democracy. This is the excuse. And I think that African people, we should not accept this. We have to insist that you have to deliver. You have to deliver. We don't care what America says or Europe says. You have to deliver. You are not going to use the excuse of democracy to escape delivery, you know, of upward mobility in economically and socially to the African people. You have to deliver. And I think that the African people have to insist. They have to insist. We have to insist that this is what we want. Because democracy, like we have mentioned, it should be a means to an end. It is a means. It is not the end itself. What we are pursuing with democracy is we are pursuing improved lives for our people. And when I was listening to the commentator I talked about, who was interviewed by NBC of the United States, the commentator is from Niger. He's saying that the African people is not that they hate democracy, but you cannot speak about democracy if there is no development. Democracy is supposed to deliver development. If democracy cannot deliver development, it is not democracy. That should be made clear. We as African people, we have to make this very clear. If you cannot deliver development for after 60 years and you tell us that you are practicing democracy, we have to reject it and say this is not democracy. And we have to insist and insist and insist over a period of time until this message, you know, makes a home run, until this message is registered by these people who are claiming that they are running democracy. So I think this is how we should look at this aspect. So democracy itself should be able to deliver the development, because we are other than that, it becomes a religion. And the last time I remember, a lot of people have been abandoning religion when they realize that it is not delivering material, any material gains for them. That's what I remember. So if democracy is not delivering, it becomes a religion, and people have been abandoning religious doctrines if they are not giving anything to them. So I think that this is what we have to insist. We have to insist that democracy should be able to deliver. If it cannot deliver, do not talk about democracy. Do not be behind democracy and talk about, you know, and fail to talk about the delivery. Don't hide behind democracy, because you are hiding from the delivery of upward mobility, economically and socially, to the African people, because that we are going to demand for it, regardless of what narrative is being used to hide behind democracy.
Interesting. Thank you, Kwame, really, for that. It becomes like a religion. There's one saying it is a term I think mostly heard by the Rastafari people. Democracy is a democracy. So yeah, it's something that like a demon that partnered with us and that refused to get out of us. So we need to really be careful and make it clear what democracy means, what comes with it. If it does not deliver development, then we need to fight it and we need to refuse it, in other words. Again, I'm enjoying reading the comments, really. There's one point that CNS said. I would like later on. I would like to play the video if I find it. But he said this. Just a second. I'm gonna read it for you all. He said, it's interesting that during the African Industrialization Summit last year in Niamey, meaning the capital of Niger, President Bazoum told other heads of state, as you said, it's really hard to say African leaders, better to say heads of states. So President Bazoum told African heads of states that they would be pushed out of power by the people if they don't deliver. So the same, if they don't deliver, what if they didn't use, this is what, okay, the country, if they didn't use the resources for the benefit of their citizens. What an irony that he is overthrown by the same reason, by his own people, because he simply allowed for the looting of the natural resources of the people of Niger. So I asked CND if he can send me a link, but he said if I Google it, it can pop up. So I will play it if I can find it later. Now let's go to the next question.
I'll comment on CND's comments in the last question. In the last question.
In the last
yes,
question. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
In the last question.
I started with my question. Now, Kwame, ECOWAS has held an emergency meeting and, of course, wants to intervene into Niger. They have said it. They gave it 1 week to restore democratically. So this is what they are demanding, to restore, it's called, to restore the democratically elected President Bazoum. Is this the right approach to this problem? We have seen people like the former member of Pan-African Parliament from Gambia. He's a new guy in the bloc, it looks like, Kande, opposing this attitude. If you allow me, actually, let me play that video and then you will continue.
They can condemn Mali, they can condemn Guinea, they are soldiers. But the one in Chad, who has been given a red carpet from the African Union, was never condemned, and he's a soldier too. He's a soldier. They can give him a red carpet to the African Union. But the other soldiers are condemned for their attempt, or for their act. Where is the fairness in ECOWAS? Or in the African Union? They are not representing us. I believe they are representing themselves. So we are calling them to remember that power belongs to the people. Alassane Ouattara knows how he came into power with Gbagbo. He knows.
Let me stop it there, I think. Yeah, he made his point clear. Yeah, so now I invite you. What do you say about this approach by ECOWAS?
So the approach in itself, I think that it is hypocritical, like he has mentioned. It is hypocritical and very dangerous. It is very dangerous that it risks even plunging the whole continent into chaos, because we already have chaos. We already have enough chaos. We have chaos in Democratic Republic of Congo, where we are trying to solve the chaos. We have problems in Sudan. Already chaos is there. We have Somalia is not stabilized already. So I think that rhetoric which they are using, that they want to put force and use force in Niger to restore the so-called president, I think is a very dangerous rhetoric. To some extent, it is ignorant, that it has ignored the reality, and they want to force colonialism on the people who are throwing it off. And actually, this is one of the things President Ibrahim Traore mentioned to the African heads of state when they were in the Russia-Africa summit in St. Petersburg. And he said that you people, some of you people, African leaders, instead of giving support to people who are fighting against colonialism and imperialism, you call us bandits, armed thugs. This is what you call us. And this is just repeating this thing, what the ECOWAS groups, which they are doing, and the African Union, what they are doing, they're just repeating that. They are repeating the same thing which they have been doing, and which is very unfortunate. Let us look at Ouattara. We saw that he hijacked the constitution. This was a coup, because he was supposed to do 2 terms. After 2 terms, and he was supported by France and the United States, the same people who are talking about a coup. So I think that the first people to be disregarded should be the United States and the Europeans, because those people, they do not have any credibility. They do not have any sincerity. They do not have any truthfulness in their hearts. They do not have a single dot of integrity. So until they have attained that level, which we have not seen for the last 600 years, they should not be listened to. Now, then these groups from the African Union and ECOWAS, who are mentioning this and issuing these statements, we as African people, I think we should be able to deal with them, because as he said, power belongs to the people. Power belongs to the people. The president of Chad, he's a military man, he's not elected. He came to power, he was not the vice president. The constitution of Chad doesn't say that the president's son, if the president of the country has died, the president's son should take over power. This guy is one of the people who are mediating, who are trying to mediate in Niger. But he himself is not elected. And this is the ECOWAS that we are talking about. Akufo-Addo we mentioned, instead of addressing the problems in the country, he decided to increase the salary of the military by 300%, because people were complaining in the country, to intimidate the people. And actually, they sent even the military in one town, and it brutalized the people after increasing the salary of the military. The military brutalized the people to intimidate the country, because the country at that time was gripped with a lot of, economic problems, and people were saying that we have to do something. So the country was under tension during that period. And this is the so-called beacon of democracy. When people complain, then all of a sudden is democracy. We want to restore democracy. I mean, this cannot be used as an excuse. So this, I think the African Union, ECOWAS, they have to go very slow on it, because if they try to confront Niger, the whole army in Niger is going to take up arms, and it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very bloody, and it's going to be very dangerous. So they better be joking. ECOWAS better be joking by saying that they are going to employ a military group. If they cannot, employ a military group to solve the Boko Haram problem, ECOWAS cannot sit urgently to solve the Boko Haram problem, which has been kidnapping people in Nigeria. Then they should back off. If they cannot make a military to stop NATO when it is invading Libya, I think ECOWAS has to back off. If they cannot make a military group to remove the insecurity in all the Sahel, then ECOWAS, they better think about what they are claiming that they want to do, because it is very dangerous. It could be very dangerous if the Nigerian military takes up arms and they start meeting. That conflict would spill up in all the African continent.
Very true. W said Niger has to figure out how to make the foreign military presence unpalatable for the foreigners. And then he asks, is it the foreign military presence or the presence of foreign business entities that is causing problem? The latter can't stay without the former, meaning the business entities, the foreign business entities cannot survive it without those foreign military presence. That's what he's saying. You don't have to comment on it now, but let's go to, I think this will be our last question perhaps, and then if we have time, we can reflect on what our viewer said. So as a way of, fundamentally addressing this challenges, these kinds of challenges, bringing about the dissatisfaction, what should be the way forward for the continent, and what should the African heads of states be aware of prior to jumping and, following this Western style of things, condemning, sanctioning, sanction here, sanction there, said President Isaias Afwerki. So yeah, go on, please. What are the things they need to be aware of before they jump into?
I think we can see the discrepancy in understanding of what is going on with our analysis. When we look at the analysis which we did on the Russia Africa Summit, when President Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso was speaking and Museveni was responding to him, there's a discrepancy in understanding of what is going on across the continent. Because Museveni is coming to 8 years, Ibrahim Traore is 35 years, 35 years. So there's a discrepancy, there's a difference in understanding of what the continent needs really. When you look at these two people when they are talking, Museveni thinks that what we have to address right now is to convince the Europeans or find a way of bypassing their approach of neo-colonialism. And Traore is saying that we have to fight them on the continent and eject them, then we will be able to implement whatever we want to implement.
Don't you think, sorry, don't forget your point, but don't you think that Traore is correct, because the way of Museveni have been tried for years and years, it's not working?
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is, to some extent, this has become the run too. So this is one of the tactics that has been used by the people who are delaying Africa's development. And this is very similar to when you go back to 1963 at the formation of the Organization of African Unity. And this thing has insisted even up to today. When, for example, President Kwame Nkrumah was arguing, we should unify, we should all work together and eject imperialism across the continent and start reconstructing the continent as a unit. Some groups, the so-called, Monrovia group, they were arguing on the other side that we should go economically, build economic region teams, and then we go small, and then we arrive somewhere, and then we start building. And it's the same narrative that you are seeing today, because the things like the Africa Continental Free Trade Area are from the African Union, and it's the same groups. Now they are telling us the African Union that is now addressing the problems of the continent. And that's the narrative you had even from Museveni when he was at the US Africa Summit, that now they have seen the problems, they are addressing the problems through the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. But we don't have the manufacturing. So what are we going to trade? We gave an example here. The Senegalese president came to Ghana, came to Uganda, and the two of them, the Ugandan president and Senegalese president, were looking at which goods Senegal and Uganda should be able to trade in, so to increase trade. It was almost non-existent. What they identified is just a few agricultural products. And Senegal, what it identified that it could export to Uganda was groundnuts. Uganda is already growing groundnuts. Uganda has groundnuts already. Clothes. Uganda is growing cotton and has a textile industry. So where is the industries now? What are we going to trade under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area if we do not have industries? So this is a road to failure for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. There's no infrastructure which is going to transport the goods which we are talking about. We don't have a railway network across the continent. Are we going to use air when we don't even have air transport credible apart from Ethiopia Airlines? And air to transport goods by air is so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have ships? We do not have any shipping line on the African continent. The shipping line which was being built by Nkrumah, the Black Star Line, it was destroyed by the groups which came after him. They destroyed everything because he was building the Black Star Line to serve the African continent as a shipping line. So this is the run to, apart from the fact that they always run to democracy. Now another run to, which is a distraction, which is an absolute distraction, is to say that let us address the economic problems and then everything will settle. Everyone will stay well in the various parts of the continent, which is not true, because imperialism is not going to let you address the economic problems in peace. So this is the argument which you see that Ibrahim Traore, the president of Burkina Faso, is on, and it's the same argument which Nkrumah was on. Let us look at, for example, Burkina Faso and Thomas Sankara. Thomas Sankara did everything to try to address those problems, economic problems, agriculture, and expanded agriculture in 4 years. In less than 4 years, he had made Burkina Faso self-sufficient in agriculture, in clothing. They were not importing food. They stopped borrowing from the IMF. What happened to him? The imperialists decided to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot address, this is significant of the fact that you cannot address these problems if you do not stop imperialism from interfering. And you cannot stop imperialism if you do not unify Africa politically, so that we can work Africa as a political unit, all of us. That is the only way to stop the interference of imperialism and killing of different leaders. So if you want to stay in the same position and claim that you are addressing the problems, it is a lie. We have seen the attention the Africa Continental Free Trade Area has received from you. The president of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, commissioned one of his people in the European Union to pay attention to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, so that they can take advantage of it. So you cannot address Africa's problems if Africa is still disintegrated, regardless of how many arguments are put up. And these arguments of democracy are arguments of we are addressing it with trade, when there's no infrastructure network to link the continent. So which trade are you addressing when there's no infrastructure network? You have not built the infrastructure network to address the transportation, the logistics of the goods. So these are just excuses which are used to hold back Africa by certain groups of people, either who intentionally know what they are doing to hold Africa back, or they are just selfish, that they think that they are benefiting from the current state of, the current poor state and divided this, state of the African continent. And we as African people, I think this is where we have to put our head up. And the governments which have come out to oppose this order, they have to be supported.
Yeah.
Mali has to be supported. Burkina Faso has to be supported. Niger has to be supported. So long as we notice that they are for the interest of the African people. I'm not saying we should support everyone who comes with a coup, but if we identify that these ones, they represent the interests of the people, they represent the interests of the African continent, I think we have to support them. Number two, I think that the African heads of state, people like the president in Eritrea, President Afwerki, President Abe, President Ramaphosa, President, and all those presidents who think that Africa's fortunes should change, they need to work with these people instead of condemning them. Reach out to them and talk to them And all the other leaders who are making unsubstantiated statements, uninformed statements, which are unfortunate, making unfortunate statements, they need to reach out and speak to these people and ask them what are the problems in the country. And address the problems. Nkrumah gave us the problems. They do not want to implement the solutions which Nkrumah gave us. Some of them are cowards, some of them are fearful, and they are hiding behind this democracy. Some of them hide their cowardice, incompetence, and selfishness behind the cloak of democracy. That's where they hide. So that we cannot understand that these are cowards, that they fear the imperialists, they fear to die, some of them. Some of them are outward selfish and corrupt. So they hide behind this to perpetuate a system which is not producing for the Africans. And that we have to confront it. And we have to make it very clear as Africans that we cannot accept, we will not accept the use of democracy to impoverish the African people. So I think that we have to continue to push our narrative as African people, support those governments, and encourage those who have resources, come and work with us so that we can be able to bring together those forces which want to see Africa in a better position. And that includes the African civil society, Pan-African organizations, includes those governments on the African continent, which are moving in the direction of the people. Because maybe some of them, they don't know that they are supposed to work together. Like right now, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger should be able to work together as a unit and strengthen that bond. And then Eritrea should also jump on board. Ethiopia, these countries, if they come together, but maybe they don't know that they are supposed to do that. And that is where we come in as Pan-Africanists, to fill that gap. And if you have out there and you have resources, then we welcome you so that we can work on that project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kwame. A very good ending to that. And definitely, yeah, first of all, just to highlight it, those countries who are similarly victims, victims of this continued French neo-colonization in their country, and now somehow who are able to overthrow that, or on the path to overthrow it, to really break that shackle for once and for all, which are Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea, Conakry, and now Niger should be able to support each other. Secondly, you know, Pan-African heads of states, which we have talked about here a number of times, which seems progress.
Yeah, yeah. So there's still some questions on the regime in Niger is likely. So some people have said that the regime in Niger is likely that coup was carried out by the United States. So the coup in Guinea, Conakry, I think it still has some questions. Okay. And yeah, and from our analysis, that still has some question marks, that regime over there. The way it has been moving, the president was trained in the United States, he was trained by AFRICOM, Doumbouya, he's called Mamadou Doumbouya, and his wife, I think, is from the United States, is a white woman. So no, it's not that it is bad to marry a white woman, you can marry, but there's questions to his orientation. The government in Guinea Conakry. So that one, I just wanted to make that clear. So what we are trying to say is this: we are not supporting coups, but at the same time we are not saying that coups, all of them are bad. That has to be very clear, and this we are not going to apologize for it. Not all coups are bad. Yeah. We are not saying that we support coups, but in the same way, democracy, not all democracy is good. And the democracy which does not produce the expectations of the people is not democracy. It should be that one also made very clear. And it is constantly a contestation of forces. All these are forces which are contesting. It should not be, it is not a straight line, like you are drawing a straight line and say democracy good, coup bad. There's no such thing like that. All these two forces should work towards delivering one major goal, and that is upward mobility, economic and social upward mobility, for the people, for the African people. If both of them cannot deliver those, then we have to do away with them and keep looking for the solution. So we cannot rely on democracy or coups and say this is the solution if it cannot deliver the upward social mobility and the economic mobility for the African people.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so just to again to add some facts, France has one of the largest nuclear power program in the world right now, and that 70%, nearly 70% of
75, I think about 75% of their energy comes from nuclear.
The energy comes from nuclear. All their homes, their industries, including their Eiffel Tower, all is lightened up by uranium looted from the natural resources of countries like Niger. Now, because imagine that there is no light in one French house in France. What does it mean? So that's why they're coming and threatening. But whereas countries like Niger, they are sitting on their natural resource and shipping in front of them their natural resource to France. But only, I think, about 13% of the population have light, electricity in their house. And that's really acceptable for the West, you know. And Niger is one of the poorest country in the world.
Yeah, so that's the brand of democracy which they are giving us. They are saying we should accept. I mean, we should not accept. We cannot accept that kind of brand of democracy that deprives our people of the right to improve the life, to electricity, to water, to good health, to good schools, no roads. That brand of democracy which they are talking about, I think we have to reject it. It cannot be democracy. That cannot be democracy. If it cannot deliver improved health, good hospitals, paved roads, but those roads are present in France, and good roads are present in France, good hospitals, good schools are present in France, electricity is present in France, but they are telling us that we are democratic when we don't have those things. It's ridiculous. I think we cannot accept it.
When we try to have that, it's not acceptable. So it's really a lot of things can be said, but how obvious things are, but how also, on the other hand, they consider us stupid, that we cannot make sense of this thing. For example, I will read what, again, CNDS put as an input here, which can strengthen our points. He said the collective West supported the 2014 coup in Ukraine. The same collective West is now the first to condemn the coup in Niger. And he says, make it make sense. And then he continues, the same collective West tries to install a guy from the street to be a president in Venezuela without elections. Now, all of a sudden, when it is in Niger, they talk about democracy. Yeah, so actually, he also gives us a data. Yeah, Europe gets 25%, not only France, but the whole Europe gets its 25% of nuclear supply from Niger. W says basic rights ensuring in democracy. Wow. And EZD says, yes, they want to keep the streets of Paris lighted. They're terrified of what's happening, cheap uranium, hopefully no more. So, wow, really insightful discussion. And our viewers also here have been, contributing their ideas, comments, and questions. Really, that makes us happy, because otherwise it's just me and Kwame. We want you to engage. And then, yeah, if you can support the channel. We want, there is a lot that's happening in the Niger coup. It doesn't end here. There is a lot of work. If we really consider ourselves as Pan-African, there is a lot of work ahead of us that we need to do beside talking and, informing. We need to walk the talk, as they say. So Kwame said, he put those things, three things. One, those countries who are now in the same line have to work together, like Mali, Burkina Faso, and now Niger. And then secondly, the progressive or somehow Pan-African heads of states also should reach out and support, or at least try to listen and understand what is going on in those countries like South Africa, Eritrea, Ethiopia, and others, you know. And thirdly, the civil society organizations and people like me, you, and here our viewers, and platforms like us have to come and also brainstorm and try to do things on the ground, you know, how we can help. We cannot, the last thing we want is to fail the people of Niger in front of us with all this information and knowledge, to let the people of Niger to fail. Sudan, we see what's happening in Sudan, you know. Yeah, so please, any ideas you have, thoughts, bring it. And people of Niger, if anyone is here, I don't know, I see Ainia, to read the name, but I see, okay, Ricardo Buckley, Ainia Niuno. I don't know from where you are, but if you know anyone, and all of you, EZD, CNDS, all of you who are here, if you know someone from Niger that can inform us, you know, and share with us what's going on, and then what they want us to do, we will be happy. So keep on, even after this streaming is over, let's hear you on the comment section. And this will not be the last video or streaming that we are doing on Niger, but we definitely want to engage you also. Yeah, keep on sharing your thoughts and share the video as well. That's it for us. Yeah, we have taken, I think, 1 hour and 10 minutes. Thank you, Kwame, and thank you, everyone. All right. Yeah. Ciao, ciao. Bye.